Healing with Human Connection, where we have encouraging conversations about tough topics such as substance abuse, drug addiction, and mental health issues for those in the Northwest Indiana area. Our hope is to share information that will guide you to resources that can help you change your life so that you can live the life you were meant to live. Check out our website, www.healingwithconnection.com, to find a full transcript of today's conversation, along with a list of any resources or links mentioned in this episode. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Jeanne Ann with Healing with Human Connection, and of course my cohort Lisa Scheller. I'm a therapist and life coach, and really focusing on relationships and couples counseling and life transitions. Lisa, on the other hand, is a life and health coach, specializing in individual coaching and family coaching. She and her husband have written a book. Lisa, you want to talk about that for a minute?
Yes, it's a book it's called From Fear to Faith, A Family's Journey with Addiction, Recovery, and Grace. So it tells our story of going through addiction and what kind of different steps we had to go through as a family. Our family unit's still together, but we know it's a family disease, and we wrote the book to just give people hope that, they do not walk alone in this journey. And now that things have opened up with the pandemic, we know that, people have different issues, and that's why we put this podcast together, so that we can lift the stigma and let people know that this is, there's help out there for you.
Right. Thank you, Lisa. And of course, we're so excited to have from NorthShore, Alan Gracula. Am I saying that last? No,
that's okay.
What is
that's
it,
to
Alan?
be expected. Rasula.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just a soft C.
And Alan is the substance abuse director for NorthShore Addiction Services. And Mike, why don't you tell us what you do?
I'm one of the counselors there. Alan's the director. I'm one of the counselors amongst the great team that we have of licensed clinical social workers, licensed mental health counselors, licensed clinical addiction counselors. So, we have a pretty strong team. Yes.
So not only substance abuse, but the whole emotional aspect of things too.
Most definitely.
Great. Alan, why don't you start and tell us, how did you get into this, and what's your background?
Sure. So I think it's been about 14 or 15 years now. And it was actually my mother and I started a program called Frontline Foundations. And just saw a real need for it within the community. We started in Porter County, and then we ventured out to LaPorte County. And so we have, it's been about 3.5 years now. We started working together with NorthShore, just seeing the client needs. And so we started working with NorthShore just as a referral source. And we saw that our missions were really in line together, to be able to help people regardless of their ability to pay, and just meeting people where they're at. And so there's a few things that I remember that were just kind of light bulb moments for me. We had a few clients that we would refer to NorthShore for Vivitrol, for either alcohol or opioid use disorders. And we had a few of them that had very serious physical health issues, ranging from, being HIV positive, or even things, untreated diabetes. And for me, it was a light bulb moment. I said, we need to make sure that these folks are getting all of these services, because as you both know, rarely does substance abuse sit in this nice little neat box, right? Right? That'd be great. Every once in a while you get one of those clients that come in, you're like, okay, all right, and so we merged together to really be able to offer a lot of different services. My background is in social work, as well as licensed addictions counseling. So it's a little bit of both sides of that. And as far as a personal connection with it, because I think that at the end of the day, this field is a calling. If you're here to make a lot of money or something like that, you've entered the wrong field.
Oh, student loans. That's another podcast.
So, okay. But I've had my own personal struggles as well as just kind of navigating different components of the system, and really seeing the impact that it's had. I can't count the number of people that I went to school with. I went through my yearbook one time and was just like,
wow,
overdose.
Right.
And when we started this, there weren't a lot of other treatment providers here. And so we said, we need to give people more options. We need to give people different perspectives. And so that's what we've done. And with the merger with NorthShore, it's really been a huge variety of services. So I don't know if it's a good time to get into that now.
That is wonderful. First of all, I just want to say, and I want to hear from you, Mike, for a minute, because
Sure.
I think listeners are interested to know not only about the programs at North Shore, some which originated with Frontline, but not only about services, but why we get into the field, Lisa, myself included, why we get into the field is because we kind of been there, done that on some level or another. And when you see that there's help out there, for those of you listening, struggling with addictions, or a family member struggling, or mental health, it's awful beyond words, gut wrenching.
Yeah.
So when you've been there, done that, or yourself or a family member, to see that there's help is everything. So that's what we're going to talk about next. But before we get into that, Mike, maybe tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I mean, a little bit of the same thing. I've been touched by it for sure in my own life. My own journey is in recovery. And I started with, really my career started with Frontline Foundations.
Nice.
We always laugh about it. I think my first credential was an ACIT, a counselor in training. Now I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I've got to walk the journey with Alan at Frontline Foundations, and then the transition to North Shore, which was, like Alan said, we all saw it. Substance abuse was only one component of all the needs we saw for all these clients, and it was constant light bulb moments of, man, we're doing this, but they need this, and that. And so it kind of all came together with North Shore, and of course I just want to touch on the programming that we do, because we use the art, the music, we use a clean cooking program, and I think it's just really awesome that because it pulls people in. And I think what we see more than anything is that the art, the music, the cooking program that we just started back up, which had a huge, we had big numbers come out for that. We see that they want something. They're looking for that
community of
They're looking
people.
for that engagement, that connection. And the more we give them that, and now with all the other services we could offer through North Shore, it's pretty exciting.
And I just want to say,
Lisa.
as they're talking, Hans, my husband, when he first admitted that he had a problem with alcohol, he went to Frontline. And I think that was earlier on when Frontline first opened. He didn't know anywhere else to go. So he reached out to Amber and said, what do I do? And she pointed him in the right direction where he needed to go to get detoxed. And he's drove there 45 minutes or an hour away, wherever, Michiana, but she knew exactly where to point him in the right direction, because back then, 15 years ago, where do you go and what kind of resources do you have? And if it wasn't for Frontline, I'm not sure, we don't know what that was going to look like, but that was the first step in the right direction. And he felt very confident and comfortable taking that advice to go and get that help. So.
That's great, Lisa. Thank you.
And those are the stories that keep us going, because we hear so many of those stories, especially early days of Frontline stories of just hey, they reached out, they at least listened, they gave us a place to go, they gave us some direction, and that more than anything meant the world, and changes lives.
It changes lives because as a family member and a wife to my husband, it was back in the day, you didn't Google, because back then we didn't have all this Google, whatever, and it was oh, where does he go get help? And you're with the finger in the yellow pages, because it wasn't something I was accustomed to.
Sure.
So it really opened up a new community of people that we could reach out to and say, now what? Now what? Because you guys had already gone down that road to know what was to happen next. So I know that was huge in our recovery story.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
Thank you, Lisa, really. And so why don't you start, Alan and Mike, tell us about North Shore and the programs that are there now for those listening.
So NorthShore is a federally qualified healthcare center, which is a lot of words, so it's an FQHC. So, and through that, we're able to offer just a huge variety of services. So, substance abuse is one component. We have optometry, we have chiropractic, we have dental, we have primary care. We have a pharmacy which provides what's called 340B pricing, which is a significant discount.
Savings.
I can think of one individual who came in who was on antidepressants, and he's like, I can't afford it. And we look it up, and like, it's like $30 a month, and to some people, $30 a month, they're like, oh, But if you don't have $30 a month,
That's a
Right,
big deal.
it's
especially in today's
absolutely,
economy.
absolutely. So he wasn't taking it, and so we were able to link him up with one of our providers who wrote that script. He went to the 340B pharmacy, got it for like $3.
Oh,
I mean, it's
life-changing
remarkable.
for him.
Yeah, but did I miss any of those services, Mike?
I mean, yeah, you touched on a lot of them. It's just amazing too, because we see it like our clients will come for group in the evening, and before they come to group, they see a dentist, a chiropractor.
Wow.
If they're having any ailments, they could go downstairs, see urgent care, primary care. So,
Right.
and that's just
Some of them,
endocrinology.
right.
I mean, but we're seeing more and more. It's just really
Yeah. NorthShore really works to just listen to the clients and really see where those needs are. A couple of things that we didn't mention is we do have a psychiatrist as well as a couple of psychologists as well. So
Right.
truly, try to provide as much under one roof. And
Right.
why that's so important is because when you talk about the substance abuse journey,
Yes.
a lot of it has to do with value, and there's so many stories that I think will just always resonate in my mind. But there was one individual who they had from prolonged use and just not taking care of themselves. They had a lot of dental damage, and this individual had a very nice smile, but they would hide it continually. They'd joke in group or they'd laugh and they'd kind of do one of this, and they came in one day and they were able to get enrolled in insurance because we have folks that can enroll folks in insurance, and eventually they were able to get the dental work done, and they came in with just this big smile.
Wow.
And people think, well, that's not substance abuse treatment. It absolutely is.
Right.
Absolutely. Self-esteem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
self-esteem and value.
It's what you,
Yeah.
right, a value. Really, what you said, Alan, is so important, and Mike, that it's so multifaceted. There's the physical addiction, the emotional addiction, and the spiritual addiction. Spiritual being life purpose. And if they're embarrassed every time they go to laugh or, So I guess what I would say to our listeners, we know it's messy. If you or a loved one has a problem, we know it's complicated, we know it's messy, there's history, there's fear of future, but begin the process of finding out what NorthShore has to offer. So what does that look like? Do they call and do they have to come in? Can they get evaluated on the phone? What?
Well, one of the things that we've seen is that's really been a big change since the merger is we get a lot of internal referrals. So let's say someone comes to the dentist and they see what they suspect may be damage from long-term substance abuse. Hey, you know what, you can, we offer this service, One of the biggest barriers to substance abuse treatment is people think they can't afford it. And so when we look at that and then they're like, well, hold on, my insurance covers this?
Right.
I know Mike had talked recently, if you want to expound on that a little bit, even chiropractic.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I think it goes back to the value of what we're offering of that holistic approach, the whole person. And even like when we were talking about the psychology and like, man, I remember when clients would come see us at Frontline, we would refer them to a psychologist for the assessment. A different psychiatrist would have to schedule an appointment. So, and you're talking about people who are in the midst of early recovery, can't put, or just trying to put the pieces together. And I'm like, well, here's an appointment in March, and then we'll do an assessment here, and then what? And now we can do it all here. We can do
It's
it
like
here.
a one-stop shop,
It's
and they start to build relationships, feel more comfortable. They're not being sent here, they're not being sent there, and they
Yeah.
have to be talking to each other and re-explaining things where people already know, like
Right.
together. It's
Right.
a community.
Yeah.
And with that communication, I mean, you know, I'm sure you guys have dealt with this before. You refer someone out to a service, and then we all get it, you know. I mean, it's like, when do I have time to communicate about this referral? And then we don't hear anything. It's like, okay, they may have showed up to that service, but we don't get that back.
Yeah,
Now it's all under one roof. Not that we can do everything,
Right.
but there's a lot of bases that we can cover.
Because as you say, the recovery journey is very challenging. So just getting to one appointment, let alone
Multiple, yes.
those doctors and counselors talking to each other. So what you offer is fabulous. That, as you say, Lisa, is a one-stop shop. Yeah.
And holistically, because we know it's just not one, it's just not the mental part of it. We
Right.
know it's physical, and we know that it's emotional, and you know, all of
Right.
that, so.
Again, to go back to your person hiding, that causes anxiety. And that anxiety can be a big part of why they're using. I'm not saying their teeth are everything, but
Right.
it could be like,
Well, or shame.
yes,
You know,
shame.
shame is such a big one in
Yeah.
our
Right.
population. You know.
Could we, another topic is for listeners listening, why is it that people don't generally, when you talk barriers, Alan, why is it that people don't go for help?
Yeah.
Do you
You
just,
just mentioned it. Shame.
yeah.
I mean, that is a big one. And we, you know, I think in our program, we talk about that all the time. The
And
difference
what would
between
you say to someone listening that is, what does shame look like? Like, what are the thoughts about?
the shame is that you get to a point in that cycle of addiction that you truly don't believe that you're worth it anymore. And when you get to that point that you don't feel that you're worth it, it makes everything that much more
Yes.
difficult,
Right.
that much more impossible. It makes it that much harder to pick up the phone. Versus when you get past that, hey, you made some bad choices, it's a disease, let's get you on track. And that holistic approach, you see a lot more engagement.
What do you think, and I know it's not a one thing, everyone is different, but how do you get someone who feels so shameful that they don't think their value is worth getting help? What would you say to them to say, go ahead and make the call?
Yeah, one, just make the call. But I think what we do, and they can expect to be treated like a person.
Yeah.
I mean, not to be treated like a criminal, you know, what's your background, anything,
Right,
but
right.
that, hey,
No judgment.
no judgment. This is a
Mhm.
judgment-free zone.
Yeah.
We just want to help. And how can we
And
help?
meet them where they're at, like
Mhm.
what happened in the past, yes, we don't know where you're going, but let's meet you where you're here, and let's keep moving forward in a more positive. Okay.
And building off what Mike was saying, it's just that goes from that first phone call, you know, I mean, across the board to treat people with a high level of respect. And, you know, sometimes it's seeing the value in them that they don't see themselves,
Right.
you know, and then understanding the difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is this is what I've done. Shame is this is who I am. And that's, you know, that's when people get stuck in it. I think, you know, we do a variety of group and individuals, and I love groups. And one of the things that I think is so important in the group process is them seeing that they're not alone in this journey. Shame is so isolating. It makes you want to not be around others, not connect.
To hide behind them.
Absolutely, yes, to hide. And then it's so cool, and Mike can probably speak on this, you know, he does a lot of groups, but seeing someone share their story, maybe it's just a little bit further in the journey.
Yes.
And someone's, oh wow, they were where I was at once, even if it was 3 weeks ago,
Yes.
you know?
And to speak on that, one of the coolest things that we haven't touched on too is that we do programming in the jail. And what we've seen now is we've seen people do well in our programs in the jail, come out, they want to stay plugged in, and then their voice in group means much more than what me and Ellen could say, because this is somebody who just got out, is trying to stay clean and sober, and is saying, hey, I'm here because I want to be here.
Right.
It kind of, you can see everyone kind of gravitate towards that motivation of, you know, like whether it be a camaraderie, a sense of belonging, but yeah.
Right, the same shame and guilt and fear that someone in jail felt, even though someone wasn't in jail, they can understand.
Totally.
And you're saying the beauty of being in a group is those same feelings are whether, no matter where you are in life,
Yeah.
social, economic,
Absolutely.
age.
Yeah.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you know, I was, you know, when we talk about, you know, substance abuse addiction, it's an equal opportunity destroyer.
Yes.
It is what it is, and it's so wild to see these folks, as you said, with such diverse backgrounds from just all across all borders,
Yeah.
and then connecting. You know, people that they wouldn't have connected in any other way, and it's like, oh wow, we can understand each other. You know, seeing that.
Well, that's wonderful. So one of the barriers big is the shame. Is there anything else our listeners might need to hear about what they can break through or have the courage to call? Because other barriers of cost, you said, shame. How about they won't understand? I'm unique. No one's been through what I've been through.
Right.
Or I'm not fixable.
Yep. Yeah. And man, and I think that all of that is true, and yeah, everyone does have their own unique journey for sure. But there are those things that we can, you know, that we can connect with. You know, I think that's one of the things that I really love about the group of staff that we have is, like, I think that at the end of the day, the connections that they build, you know, they're so strong. You know, I mean, we see people come to us that are court ordered, and then they end up staying with us for a couple of years. You know, post court ordered. You know, all of that stuff. But I think one of the things, as far as a barrier too, is just people still don't realize the help that's out there. You know, and people do feel at times like. We did a campaign in LaPorte that, you know, addiction is not a life sentence, you know, to where it's like there, you know, this does not have to be the end of your story.
Right.
Exactly.
You know,
There is help out there, and you don't have to live in this pain.
right.
Yeah.
Right. So any other barriers?
I think really the biggest barriers too are that stigma and misinformation. You know, we have clients who come in all the time that think therapy is either The Sopranos.
Yeah.
And they just sit down and they're like, "Is this like The Sopranos?" I'm like, "No."
Oh gosh, isn't that funny?
Or they're looking for a couch.
An easy fix.
So just kind of, I think just navigating and helping them understand the process.
Yeah.
Like, hey, when you call, the first thing you do is you can talk to someone who cares, wants to hear your story, get you an appointment.
Right.
You're going to talk to a professional who, that's what we do. We deal
And
with this
there's
on a daily
no,
basis.
Mike, would it be important to say there's no commitment? You make that call, you're going to hear what you have. You're not
There's
committed
no-
to do
yeah.
anything.
And no commitment at all.
But
And
because you're so talented and so passionate, and as you say, Alan, people who work in the field, there's a reason they work in the field. They want to help you.
yeah.
So that trust and gentle spirit is probably what helps the average person see
Yeah.
I think
the light.
And that reminds me of something too, is, you know, a lot of these folks, we see more and more self-referrals, which is, you know, a good thing in some regards. You know, you say, you know, oh, our numbers are up. It's like, well, that means people are suffering, you know. But, you know, but we're grateful for those opportunities that we have, because that's really what it comes down to. But sometimes people have this preconceived notion that this is what treatment looks like. You know, you know,
good or bad.
everything is, you know, intensive outpatient and this and that. And when these folks are coming in, you know, we're gonna work with you to meet you again where you're at and what your needs are. I think that's really important, because sometimes I look at it, as Mike was saying, you know, okay, go here for this appointment, go here for that appointment, you know, and then you're gonna see us 4 times a week. And I'm like, I stepped back once and I said, could I do what I'm asking this client to do?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's a full-time job.
Recovery.
And how do you get on with your life and go to work and take care of
and
these
balance.
other and balance. And it can become very overwhelming for someone that's in that situation, because they're not used to balancing these things. They need to take baby steps, you know?
Right.
Which is, again, important, which, like what Ellen was speaking on, that we meet you where you're at. I mean, some
I just
people-
love that saying, because, you know, we try to go back and try to fix something. When we can't fix that right now, we have to fix what's happening here and get them going in
And
the right
navigate
direction.
their everyday
Yes.
life
Mhm.
and with recovery. Very
Yeah.
good. Well, I want to thank you both, honestly, and
Mhm.
Lisa, Ellen, for you and your mom starting Frontline,
Yes.
bravo, and then
Mhm.
navigating that whole transition with honestly with North Shore, that is wonderful. And Michael, thank you, Mike, for being here today. And sincerely, we appreciate all that you do. We know it's not easy on days.
That's for sure. That is
And,
very true.
Yeah, not everyone gets healthy, but most do. And at least it's planting the seed for future health. And gosh, if there is ever a time we need it, it's now.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
education is the biggest thing, because I know when we were going through this, it helped to have people that had already known what we should do and educate us. So it's not scary. It's not a scary situation. And
Yeah.
so educating, letting people know it's going to be okay, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the best way to reach us, I don't know if you guys are going
Yes,
to
go
put
ahead,
something on the
Ann.
bottom
Yes.
of the screen or what,
Yes.
but
we will.
Please.
our main number is 219-763-8112, and that's you just have to tell them, what location you're looking at, what services you're looking for, and we've got tremendous front desk staff that
Yes,
will
they're amazing.
take
I
care
know,
of
I
you.
referred
Yeah.
and called, and they are
Yeah.
very good. So again, North Shore Recovery Addiction Center.
Frontline.
Frontline, yeah.
Federally Qualified Healthcare Center. That covers all of it. It's all under that umbrella, all the
Right.
different services.
Right.
And what I like about the North Shore too is when I had reached out to ask for guests to come on, I got a real person, which I really liked,
Yeah.
because I didn't have to feel like I was getting transferred here and there. So
Yeah.
it was nice to get a real person that could get me directed to who
Yeah.
I needed to talk to.
And
so.
I think Denise is the one that set all this up. So
Yep,
thank
she
you,
is.
Denise.
Yay,
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you,
Denise.
Denise.
And,
Yeah.
and just and last but not least,
Yes.
that North Shore, you can call if you have no money, no insurance.
Absolutely.
That is
If you're just walking off the street, you can be seen, and that's the most important thing, that everybody can be
Mike,
seen.
thank you for
Yeah.
saying
Yes,
that.
thank you for
Thank
bringing
you for
for
us.
sure.
saying that. So thank you all again. Cassie, thank you always for doing our tech behind the scenes. And our wish for all of you is to be kind to yourself, love yourself enough. If you're struggling, to reach out to North Shore or Lisa or myself, just to get some answers to your questions about where do you begin. So be kind to yourself, love yourself and others, and have a really good week. Thank you.
God
Thank you.
bless.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed today's episode, let us know by leaving a comment or review and sharing with a friend. All resources mentioned today and a full transcript of this episode can be found by going to our website, www.healingwithconnection.com. A video of this recording can be found on our YouTube channel, and the audio podcast is available on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts.